one of the solutions that people keep throwing out is everything would be okay if we just got rid of tax credits. And I continue to get emails which are just absurd from people saying that somehow we get less money from SB 21. In fact, we get more money from SB 21. That's not even debatable. But Senator Micciche, you had written up something that I saw. I'm not sure if you had it written up or whatnot, but it had some information about tax credits and oil taxes. And whereas they might be available to debate this question, it isn't necessarily germane to the budget issue right now. Go ahead, Senator Micciche.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't. I think oil taxes should be a living document. I think we should be open to adjustments to make it the very best system we can have. But we hear a lot of things, and we're led to believe that the state is actually paying out, that there's a negative impact from oil production. And the fact is that positive earnings from all oil and gas production related revenue in FY15 was approximately $1.6 billion, $362 million in production taxes alone. FY16, $1.6 billion, $320 million in production taxes alone. Folks often attribute the tax credit issues and our situation to Senate Bill 21. These credits are not a result of Senate Bill 21. I mean, there are some that are carried through, but they're much more of a result from HB 2001 or ACES in 2007 and HB 280 or the Cook Inlet Recovery Act of 2010. Both of those bills were supported by the minority. In fact, several co-sponsors were from the minority on those bills. They also claim that there's a causal relationship with Alaska's deficit and oil tax credits. And that's probably the biggest issue that folks need to understand is that Senate Bill 21 earned approximately $400 million more in FY15 than ACES would have and approximately $550 million more in FY16 than ACES would have. Although Senate Bill 21 earns more, the oil is simply worth 50% less than it was in August.
Right.
And then when you look at, we're all looking forward to higher oil prices, and that's the problem when you have sort of a mono revenue state, as we do. We're all so dependent on oil, but when you go down the whole list of what oil and gas production does for us, here's FY15 for an example. FY16 similar. Production taxes $362 million, royalty $947 million, property taxes $128 million, corporate taxes $204 million. It's $1.6 billion, 1.64. If we were still under ACES, it'd be $1.2 billion, significantly less. A lot of the credits had to do with increasing the availability of natural gas in Cook Inlet. And again, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't look at improvements in the future. We should always keep our eyes open for an effective tax. But we just heard unfair comparisons, and Alaskans still believe that Senate Bill 21 has something to do with our situation. So we've done the best we can. Mr. Chairman, if I can continue just for a moment. Mm-hmm. We made the cuts at this table and through the subcommittee structure with a complete absence of politics. I know that a lot of services that are very important to my district, I eliminated District O from my mind and I looked at what was most important for the state. We did prioritize, which is why we hit education with the smallest cut. What I'm seeing with this $94 million increase, essentially 54 in UGF, is, and I'm trying to put myself in people's shoes. That's how I look at things. I try not to look at them the way Peter looks at them. I try to look at them the way the other person looks at things. And I know that the governor's somewhat caught in the middle. But with the letter from April 27th, I don't see a middle. The changes in this budget are largely political changes. And I just don't know how we can operate that way going forward. I think we have to eliminate the politics and determine what's best for Alaskans. But if you read that letter from the 27th, it's not in the middle. It's carrying the message of the minority, of course, trying to get a 30% or a three-quarter vote on the CBR. The CBR three-quarter vote was designed as a way to be very prudent with any of our reserves and really thinking about that before we do a draw. But obviously, in this case, it's being used in an adverse situation. It's being used to spend $94 million versus in a way for us to be more prudent with the spending. So when I try to put myself in his shoes and try to be as fair as possible, there still has to be room for significant negotiation. All of this would be really great stuff to do if we had the money, but the whole minus $8 billion over 2 fiscal years really makes this a very difficult exercise.